Forget everything you know about cinnamon rolls because cinnamon roll cookies are where it's at. Hi everyone, I'm Astrid from the Sweet Rebellion and today we're going to be making cinnamon roll cookies. Just as delicious as a cinnamon roll, but much easier and quicker to make. Up until I made these cookies, chocolate chip cookies were by far my favorites. Now I wouldn't say that these have overtaken them, but they're certainly fighting for the top spot. For the cookie dough, these are the ingredients you'll need. 385 grams of flour, 200 grams of salted butter, 150 grams of caster sugar, half a teaspoon of baking powder, 1 large egg, and a teaspoon of vanilla essence. Just like with the cinnamon roll, we're going to make a nice buttery sugar and cinnamon filling. And for that, you'll just need 60 grams of butter, 100 grams of brown sugar, and a tablespoon of ground cinnamon. And just like with the cinnamon roll, we're also going to make a cream cheese glaze. And for that, you'll need a tablespoon of butter, 2 tablespoons of cream cheese, half a cup of icing sugar, a teaspoon of vanilla essence, and a teaspoon of milk. To make our cookie dough, we're first going to cream together our softened butter and caster sugar. Then we'll beat in the egg and vanilla essence. Lastly, we'll mix our baking powder and flour together and then add that gradually until we have a nice stiff dough. Once you've added your flour, be careful not to overmix the dough or your cookies will be tough. Once your mixture starts to come together like this, you can stop mixing and just divide it into two. We're going to wrap 2 flat discs in cling wrap and just chill them for about 30 minutes before rolling them out. So I'm going to pop these into the fridge now for 30 minutes so that they're nice and firm, and in the meantime we're going to make our cinnamon and sugar filling. So to make our filling, we're just simply going to mix together our butter, sugar and cinnamon. I've actually melted my butter to make it a little bit easier to mix. I'm just going to mix it by hand, no need to use an electric mixer. Next, I'm just going to place this into the fridge while we roll out our dough. So because we've made our dough nice and flat before we chilled it, it's going to be quite easy to roll out. I'm just going to dust the counter with a little bit of flour to make sure that the dough doesn't stick. I'm just going to roll this out to a rectangle that's about 25 by 20 centimeters and make sure that the longer side of the rectangle is closest to you. After we've rolled out our dough and trimmed the edges nice and neatly, we're just going to spread on half of our filling and keep the other half for the remaining disc of dough that's still in the fridge. The reason that we use brown sugar in our filling is just so that we get a really nice contrast between the dark filling and the light cookie dough. Once you've spread your filling nice and evenly and all the way to the edges, we're gently going to start rolling it up from the long edge away from you. The reason we want our filling to go all the way to the edges is otherwise the cookies that we slice off on either end are not going to have much filling. Don't worry if any cracks form in your dough while you're rolling it, because we're now going to roll it nice and tight in cling film and it'll all smooth out. We're going to chill the dough now for at least an hour so that it's nice and firm before we slice it. Because this recipe makes about 60 cookies, I like to bake one batch immediately and then keep the other roll in the freezer for a rainy day. So this will stay nice and fresh in the freezer for about 3 months. Now that our dough is nice and firm, we can slice it into our cinnamon roll rounds. And I'm going to slice each one about 5 millimeters thick. Remember to leave some space in between the cookies on your baking sheet, as they are going to spread a little bit during baking. I just love the moment where you make your first slice and see that beautiful spiral in the middle. It's important that the cookies are cold when you bake them. If they've been sitting out at room temperature, when you bake them, they're going to lose their shape and they're not going to have that beautiful spiral effect. So once you've filled up your tray, put your extras straight into the fridge. These are going to bake at 180 degrees for 10 to 12 minutes. While our cookies are baking, we're going to make our cream cheese glaze. I'm just going to mix together the butter and cream cheese first, and then add the remaining ingredients and mix until it's nice and smooth. Just remember to have your butter and cream cheese at room temperature when you make your glaze. When your cookies come out of the oven, you can just leave them to cool on the tray for 2 or 3 minutes. Then transfer them to a cooling rack where we're going to glaze them. Once your cookies have cooled completely, it's time to drizzle on the cream cheese glaze. You can either do this with a fork or a teaspoon, or if like me you'd prefer it to be nice and neat, then use a piping bag. And there you have it, my cinnamon roll cookies. Thanks so much for watching. If you make these, I'd love to hear where they rank on your list of favorite cookies. You can find the recipe for these cookies on my blog. Remember to hit the subscribe button so that you get notified of more how-tos about my recipes.